Hey, we are live. We've got a great show here for you today. We're going to be talking about breaches with leaked credentials. I'm going to be talking about certifications and do they matter. And there's an amazing demo that, fingers crossed, of KubeArmor. My name's Steve Jaguar.
And I'm his co-host, Mike Foster. Yes, that is C9K in the streets, clusterfuck in the sheets. Welcome to episode 3.04. We have a great show.
Hello, Mr. Foster. How have you been?
I've been doing well. I've been keeping busy. We had a meetup last week, so I got to see you in person. It was good to see everybody. For those watching, we're going to go through general news, recap it all. But first, make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube so you get our notifications. We try to do this every 2 weeks. So we're planning on doing one event right before KubeCon and then one after. So you have a perfect wrap up. Steve is going to be there. So you're going to give us the lowdown on all the hot new security startups, what's going on, right? You're going to be in Amsterdam and traveling at the end of April.
Yeah, the end of that show, I'm going to give you probably a dense recap of KubeCon, RSA, and B-Sides, because I'll be doing them all back to back to back. I'm going to be racking up some travel points.
Yeah, and speaking of recaps, we went to a CNCF meetup here in Toronto, the first one that you've ever been to. It was really nice at the PwC building on like the 30-something floor. It's a great view. And we had some special guests, right?
Actually, the subject matter was actually pretty hot, pretty security centric. For like, I think I had to ask you, is this a security meetup or is this like just a generic, like, cloud native meetup? And you're like, no, it's just the cloud one. I thought, sweet. And I don't know how you did it. Who was your halfway special guest?
Yeah, Kelsey Hightower managed to join. He was in town for another event, and he dropped by and just kind of did a fireside chat, 30 minutes talking about meetups, how it started, ranting about Kubernetes and containers in 2014, 2015 in the early days. So very interesting talk. And it was just good to be back in person, getting some pizza. No beer, though. They need to figure that one out. I know. There's a letdown. But overall, just really nice to be back. And it'll be nice in the summer, too. I think we got to plan something. There's a couple more places in Toronto I think we could host a meetup than PwC building right downtown. All right, should we get into it?
Let's do it. General news. What's first on the docket? CNAP market guide?
Yeah, so this one came across my desk 2 weeks ago. I think it was basically just coming out on our last show. And it's a market guide for cloud native application protection platforms. That's a mouthful. But in this market guide, basically, they're going to make some predictions. Where does the market look like it's going? What sort of features and functionality define a CNAP?
Ooh, yeah.
Right. It's very useful, I think, for the security tools to be able to look and say, hey, this is how we're going to be analyzed by different analysts and different teams. It's a lot of features. I don't think anybody that's listed down there can do it all, but they seem to want to push a lot of consolidation.
Yeah, you said down there. There is a list down here of, and I keep blowing by it, of companies.
Yeah, at the very bottom.
Very bottom. Vendors. Here we go. Yeah, and it's like a weird embedded, don't print this out, list of companies where, like, knowing a lot of these companies and having seen the ridiculous list of requirements to be called a CNAP, I'm like, is anybody really qualified?
Yeah, I mean, I saw
everyone says it.
Upticks is in there, and they're relatively new on the scene, and they're more of a DevOps with like some security features, but.
Well, they claim to be CNAP and XDR combined, and I'm like, that's even harder.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think that some of the key takeaways were really interesting. The fact that people are using multiple security tools and they're looking to consolidate. I think that is the take that we saw at the last Cloud Native Security Con. They're probably just following us. I think we have a couple viewers, and they're like, "Hey, what's the hot take?" But yeah, and in general, I think they're moving more towards API. Really interesting that on every call I get, analysts are talking about API security. I think because they're buying into the Wiz headlines and they're seeing how much Wiz is making. Yeah, again, you can do API security. It's just you don't get any of the security features that security teams need. So it's one of those. It's just always depends on who your customer is. There's like the typical way of doing security, and then there's some newer, let's say, more cloud native API driven ways, and that seems to be the hottest thing on the market right now. So
it is, yeah. There's so this thing I want to call out, right? Adjacent to CNAP, and then they would rattle off another list of people who didn't make the list. And I feel Apiro think they're a CNAP, and they didn't they're not in the list. Oligo is interesting because they just came on my radar, and I'm like, I have never heard of Tromso.
Yeah.
So I have to check that out and see what they do.
Yeah, a very wide umbrella for what is considered a CNAP.
Yes, it's well, maybe this will help. Maybe people will read this and go, all right. If someone says they're CNAP, now I have a pretty decent guide of what I should be asking them about to see like where are they really, where are the gaps, and now I know, right? But I wanted to heckle this, and actually I kind of like it.
Yeah, I thought it's pretty well written. I do think that cloud native is such a vague term, but I get it.
Yeah. All right. Enough begging up Gartner.
Yeah. Yeah. The next one was we have some Mac hacking or Mac OS malware steals iCloud keychain data and passwords. This could be in the WTF section. It's actually
it could be.
It's pretty funny when you go down and look at the application that was used to install on the Mac OS. Have you gotten that far?
This one.
Yeah.
Well, so this is ridiculous, right? Not just the fact that it's called weed, right? That they said the method used to deliver the malware is not known, but it's propagated as a DMG file. Link. Like, I'm not clicking that.
Yeah, what is this?
Jeez, is it? Oh, I think we know it's distributed through this article.
Yeah,
but it actually, I looked at it. It's going to virus total, but it just made me laugh that they said, "Here's the malware," and they made
they embedded it like that.
But it is cool. It installs an app, and it just does the thing. It plays upon our own stupidity. Pops up and says Mac OS wants to access, and then you do that. That happens on my Mac like at least once a week. Something pops up and says, "Oh, we need your password to access something." Doesn't give you any details.
It's to what it is. Yeah, it's
so who wants to access and what. That's what the Mac does, and so now you just type it in. So beware. It was a funny article, but I guess it's real. Don't install apps called weed. Maybe that's
shocker.
the lesson. That's the shocker.
Yeah, that's not a hot take, but you're up on the next news. Ready for your hot take?
Yep. All right, my hot take today. My hot take today is: do cybersecurity certifications matter, or do they have value? And I forgot when I suggested this one. I actually wrote an article in 2017 about cybersecurity certifications and did lots of digging, because that was when I just got the CSSLP, which I can't even barely remember what that stands for, Certified Software Secure Lifecycle Practitioner or something like this. It's like CISP, which is probably the most valued one on LinkedIn, but it's more about what we do. It's more application security based, right? And it was good. It was a good like kickstart into figure out what you don't know. But since then, and I wrote an article about how it was, and I looked at all the different certifications you can get. How many certifications in cybersecurity do you think are available for you to take, Foster?
Oh, I don't know, 100?
You're pretty close. Yeah, it's just a little bit under. Because if you look at EC Council, which is like certified ethical hacking, or you look at GIAC alone has almost 50. And those are more valued in America, but don't have that much value outside of America. Like they do, but they don't. And then you've got the ISC2 ones, which is what CISP and CSSLP, of which there are tons. So I did that one, and I wrote an article saying, of the 50 to 100 certifications I can only afford because it was $700 to do the ISC2 one. I can really only afford one, right? I can't. It's been $100,000 just getting certifications. And since then, I think as a beginner, it was good to give me credibility, but I let it expire because that particular cert, all you had to do to keep it, like unlike the CKE and the CKS where they test you and you renew, all I had to do was give the IC2 money, and I retained my CSSLP.
Wow.
No further testing required. It was just, it felt like a lure for me to just fund them creating more certifications.
Mhm.
That's my now hot take. In the article I wrote, I actually, because I just got it, I thought, yeah, it seemed like it was worthwhile. 6 years later, I have stopped paying them. So technically I'm not certified anymore, but I don't think I lost any value. Like, so I'm like, I find it odd when I see LinkedIn and there's a bunch of letters after their name. I'm like, I don't care. You know what I'd rather look at is your experience. Like, I think my hot take is like, maybe it's good if you want to get into cybersecurity and there's no degree, very like first year people. But after that, I really don't think it gives you any credibility anymore.
So the hot take is cybersecurity certifications don't matter.
They don't really matter past like year one.
Okay.
Like for us, they don't really matter. I think a CKS is way more valuable. And I realize that's a cert, that's not a cybersecurity cert, really. It's a test.
Yeah. What
do you think?
tend to agree with you. I'm also so I ran across this Reddit thread. Hopefully this doesn't glitch out.
Taking my hot take.
No, yes, hot take. I completely agree. So I came across this on Cybersecurity Dummies full guide, tips on getting interviews and getting hired in IT or security role, and literally none of it is a cert. You know, there's some Udemy courses because it's nice to have somebody like a guide on what to follow and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Interview questions, mastery, home networking, pfSense home lab, create a home lab, learn how to set it up, learn how to network it, learn, how to work with so your CentOS, your Ubuntu's, like all your different operating systems, behavioral questions. Like half of it is, can you do the job, but also like how to present yourself. Can I trust you? You are a security practitioner and IT, you have a lot of power. And I think that, like just as much as you need to train your technical chops, you also need to train your personal presentation. So I just thought it was interesting. I think that person, whoever wrote this, did a great job and agrees with you too. By the way, all the links down in the chat, or if you guys want to click on them, if you want to check out all these Reddit threads or all that stuff, feel free. But yeah, hot take was medium spice this week.
Medium spice, exactly. I didn't just come right out and say certifications are complete BS.
Yeah, certifications suck. That actually leads into the next one. We got to have a new section. It was Ask Reddit. So I just showed the cybersecurity one. I think that there's another one that talks about Kubernetes security, open source tooling, and a very terrible headline that popped up. It was kind of weird, but
let's do this.
Yeah, bring it on in.
Kubernetes security tooling, open source. I think they're missing a bracket there, right?
Yeah, non-SaaS.
Non-commercial is kind of what they meant, right?
Yeah, and it's just like you can't install Aqua locally unless you're paying for it, right? So I think what they want is something in a disconnected environment that's open source Kubernetes security tooling. And really, there's only 2 platforms that do that.
It's funny because like they're saying we're using Prisma Cloud Compute brackets Twistlock, plays iWork. It's hefty on budget, no doubt. Negotiate better. But then they're talking about like New Vector, which is open source now, I believe.
Yep.
Right. Good alternative, they think. SUSE open source last year. Yes. You did New Vector on the show.
Yep.
I don't think we were super impressed.
I mean, there's really 2 platforms that will cover all of your use cases or all the use cases in Kubernetes, and that's New Vector and StackRox. Yeah. I think they're okay. I've heard rumors that New Vector is going to fork their upstream open source and start gating specific features. Mm-hmm. Whether that's true or not, we'll see. But yeah, I mean, going through this and looking at the Ask Reddit, I also think what's crazy is people that want to do like Trivi, Falco, OPA. and you want to, so let me get straight. You want to learn 3 different tools, one at runtime, which is very hard to configure across clusters. Trivy makes sense, especially at the developer level, like scan vulnerabilities, get information. Sure, that's an easy one. You can implement that tomorrow. But like, why wouldn't you try the full platform first? I'm just kind of shocked by this.
Yeah, it's a massive builder buy argument, and the cost of your build here is huge. Like, how much time do you have? You know, and it's funny that we started off talking about the trend is toward consolidation into platforms, and then you come to Reddit and they're like, I'm going to take all these tools and I'm going to build it myself. It's like, oh, okay, who are you? TK Lysanic. If you succeed in integrating these two in a clean way, create a startup that is these 3 things integrated as a service and become the devil that you hate. Because people might pay you if you can successfully put this together, and it's easy.
Yeah, and literally the sentence underneath, only you need to have the manpower and some knowledge how to fit it all into your development and deployment process. Yeah. So like the hardest things to find. Also, there was this one, Borgen. Can someone explain why people? Can we explain why people don't? Anyways, that's not a sentence. Why more people use open source instead of throwing their money at commercial products that use it under the hood anyways? Support. You can use open source, but when shit hits the fan, what are you going to do? When another Log4Shell comes out and you have Falco and Trivy, right, for your enforcement, you're going to be running around trying to put out a fire and you have no clue where the fire is. So
it's you are paying for a lot more than just the integration of a few products.
Correct. Yeah, you're paying for that, for support, for feedback into the actual product itself, to get the product to move towards your use cases, to like so much more. But I think the key word there is like, why are people aren't throwing money at these companies? Organizations are, right?
Yeah, organizations that realize that their entire business value is on the line, and their reputation.
Yeah. Well, we got into a little crazy stuff there, but we have some other more wild stuff.
I just feel like that was a better hot take than the actual hot take.
Yeah, we got to make it spicier for the people.
All right.
So WTF, we have 5 of them. I think the first one is hackers draining Bitcoin. We got a bunch coming up for you. So did you get a chance to dig into this?
I didn't get the, like, how did it happen? Did you already do this? Like,
yeah. So
what was the vulnerability?
The person has to have inside knowledge of how this terminal works, right? So I identified a vulnerability in the service 0 day. They haven't exactly said what it is. They scanned the IP addresses in the cloud, uploaded an application that then ran in the background, I'm assuming. Yeah, very interesting. You have to have kind of intimate knowledge of the cloud service and what's connected, I think.
Yeah, it seems like you worked at the Bitcoin ATM company and then went, good God, this is so insecure. I'm going to quit, wait 6 months, and take all the money.
Or I have a friend who's just is equally good in IT, who works in a different country, that I'll fly up here to go and hack and then leave, right? Like,
there you go. Yeah,
it's one of those situations. But let me just say, they can't recover it, which is what's also wild about Bitcoin. Crazy too, because it's 1.5 million. That was probably worth like 150 million a while ago too.
Well, I'd be happy with that.
Yeah. Yeah, regardless.
All right.
Yeah, speaking of hacks, Ferrari discloses data breach. Yeah, after receiving a ransom demand.
Why are they disclosing only after receiving a ransom demand?
Maybe they didn't know that they had been hacked, and then the ransom demand was like, hey, we have access. And then like, oh, you access our stuff like by GDPR too. Like, we have to actually tell everybody that we've been hacked as well. So this is what's kind of funny, is somebody tells a ransom demand, but by law, they have to tell everybody they got hacked anyways. So is the ransom demand useful?
Well, there was one, I think a couple of weeks ago, where there was we reported on a demand for ransom, and the company was like, we can't see where we've been breached. I think they're full of crap.
Yeah.
And you wonder, is this another one, right? Maybe maybe cybercrimes become easy. You just say you have the data and hope they pay you.
Yeah, it becomes like slander, right? We're just going to slander your company. It's just kind of what's blackmail almost, right?
Yeah, yeah. I do like this though. They call their people Ferraristas.
Yeah. Also, if you have a Ferrari, it's like, ooh, what am I worried? Somebody's gonna know I have a Ferrari now. Man,
Oh,
I don't
look,
know. I don't know what
the
information gets
Ferrari
dumped,
breach
but
notification. The Ferrari breach notification came from Troy Hunt. Really? Oh no, it's published by Troy Hunt. Okay, I thought, did he write that? That's interesting. He's a famous cyber guy. All right. What do we have next? Apparent hack, data from Australian tech giant Atlassian dumped online. So a real hack.
Yeah.
Yes, finally, when we can prove. Hacking group called SiegeSec posted thousands of employees and floor plans for 2 of the company's offices. I don't know where the value is there, but okay. But yeah, I mean, this is where I was talking about at the very beginning, leaked credentials online. This came from yet another, and I can't remember where it says. There we go. Obtained valid user credentials. That was essentially checked in.
Yeah.
It's the old classic of what blows my mind is like there's checking credentials. We talked about this before. Ever check credentials or anything that even looks like a credential into GitHub?
Yeah, it gets flagged right away.
It flagged so fast.
Yeah.
So how is there still anything anywhere that like there is, even if GitHub doesn't find it, there's like 1,000 tools like TruffleHog and all this that you can run for almost free, talking about open source, and platforms that do this for you. I don't get how this still happens unless like they're really unique shapes, right? They don't follow a pattern of some sort.
Yeah, and I'm just reading what the hackers posted. So they said, that's right, folks. I think it's SiegeSec is here to announce we've hacked the software company Atlassian. This company's worth $44 billion. It has been pwned by the furry hackers. Ooh woo. Yeah. Yeah, I read that. Anyways, at least they have a sense of humor. That's kind of funny.
That's nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a tough one. I'm just thinking about the floor plan because I know that certain security companies will go to Google to have their address removed, right? They'll say, like, I tried to find 1Password here in Toronto. It doesn't have an office, even though I know their office is in Toronto.
Oh, cool.
Because
I guess so.
Yeah, so they go and they apply and they say, like, listen, we're a security company. We do not want to be, like, we want people not to know where we work so that people can't hack. You know, you can lower the risk of somebody stumbling into the office for jobs and random things, right? So I think the floor plan is also basically to say you could just cross-reference that with most city planning guides and figure out where their office is, right?
True. I don't think Atlassian's trying to keep that a secret, but I see what you're saying, though.
True. Yeah.
Interesting. Hey, we have another, it's a WTF, but it's a Reddit. So it's combined Reddit and WTF.
Yes, a lot of Reddit threads, but this is a good, has GPT been hacked?
Or does it just suck?
Yeah. I've never had these conversations. Xi Jinping's 6 principles.
Yeah. Yeah. Who was it that said it? Because it's like, was the person, it's like, I'm not even in China?
Yeah. So something's going on. I love one of the top comments, which was chat CCP. It's great.
Cheap
GPT. Chat CCP. There it is. That's a great comment. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, there it is.
This is good. This is great. Yeah. It turned out, right, that it was just a bug.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is hilarious. But I mean, of course it's a bug, man.
Yeah. Also, why do people think that their chat stuff is going to be secret? I always laugh when I go to Airbnb and I pull up like the smart TV to put music on, and somebody's like still logged into their YouTube account, and you can see their search history. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Some of them are kind of weird too. It's just, hey, you're searching on the internet. This stuff is public. Keep it PG-14.
Yeah.
13.
Okay. This is our last one? Yes. Our last deep WTF. The CNCF Ambassador Program members was announced. Michael Foster, are you a CNCF ambassador?
I'm not.
No, neither am I.
Yeah, I didn't apply either, but
no.
Yes, they did. They did their version 2.0. They put out some requirements of what's needed. I think like you have to be a contributing member to a certain amount of projects, like a SIG, if you're a tag member, you kind of automatically get it, which I think is nice because I remember the first iteration, it was more like marketing heavy on specific people. And you have a lot of developers who are in the community working all the time and they weren't really getting the credit that they think they should have got. Yeah, there was this weird, like, we only want a certain amount of ambassadors. I'm like, why not have more? If somebody's actively working on the Kubernetes like project and they're doing a great job, why wouldn't you just give them ambassadorship? Anyways, so they overhauled it. Also meant that some people didn't get it that I think were expecting it.
Well, yeah. I mean, a nice. I liked your comment, which is why it's the one up here, right? I was CNCF Ambassador of the Year in 2021, and now I'm not at all.
Yeah.
And like, okay, how much of an overhaul did you do? And that makes me think, well, that's maybe a little too much. If like you've got your best ambassador and they're like, no, you don't represent anymore.
And I think the WTF comes from something had to happen behind the scenes, right? Like it's got to be like a little bit of a political thing. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we don't know, but it's weird. She was replying to this guy, Brett Fisher, and I don't have his original up there. He was also bumped out of it as well, and does a whole lot of good things in the industry, like technical things, but he's not using one of the SIGs. Like maybe they just, I don't know, maybe they just cleaned house. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's weird.
Definitely a weird process, and I just don't like how hidden it is.
But, yeah, it's not particularly transparent, is it?
Yeah, it's like, hey, you didn't get it because of this. Like, you can fix it for next year, and they go through a yearly process. I don't see the issue with it. Also, there's this weird like gatekeeping thing where we have to have a certain amount of ambassadors and like certain makeups around the world and all this stuff. I'm like, why don't you make it bigger? Like, why are you trying to limit the growth? Yeah, if I'm an ambassador, I'm gonna be more invested in the actual community. But I don't know. That's
it is. Yeah, geographically, I'm sure it should be. I don't know. I don't personally. I don't hang out with a whole lot of like. I don't know. I feel like I know a lot of people in the industry, but like, how many CNCF ambassadors do I actually know? Like, not many. Not that there couldn't be more. But yeah, what do we know, right? Yeah, everything's a hot take.
Everything is a hot take. What do we got coming out next? We spending some money?
Yep.
I think.
All right.
Yeah, we got 2 today.
Dope.
Yeah.
The name. Who's naming these things?
Dope security. Some frat boy was just like, yeah, it's called dope security.
Security's like so dope.
Yeah. It's something that we were looking at before the show. We are trying to figure out exactly how it worked. 60 million led by Google Ventures to build out secure web gateways designed to work on endpoints and not in the cloud. Yeah,
I popped it up here.
Yeah.
Deploying your device and free for 30 days. Look at all this. It's a sexy website.
Yeah. So this is, I think, people that used to work at Google that got spun out, right? Google Ventures being one of the big investors. Yeah. So they're obviously trying to tackle a problem that's specific to Google. They're willing to invest a bunch of money into it. I'm wondering if this has to do with a lot of the SSL changes that are coming on the devices. You know, when you're switching between carriers?
Yeah.
Right. Remember we talked about that when you switch between Wi-Fi and carriers, you have to do like that SSL verification again all the time. Yeah. And that's why when you're on phones and you switch, it like drops like very poorly. Right. Yeah. And so, yeah, Google is one of the leading companies that are changing the TLS protocol so that you're doing the verification with the device and with the SSL at the same time. Right. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering if that's what this has to do with, where it's like part of that is, you know, it's authenticating once. Like, let's say you're signing in a Google device, it authenticates once, and then whatever network you're on, it's always like verified. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so. I think I didn't quite understand why I needed this, but that actually isn't a bad explanation.
Honestly, I went through the website and I'm just like, what is the use case for this? And
yeah, exactly.
We already have devices, and literally you scroll on the page that talks about its funding. It's like, this is just a new way to do a paradigm that's been here for 20 years.
Oh my God. Look at this. It's not that we're mad.
Yeah. We made it better. Okay. We made it easier. We made it dope.
Yeah. Yeah.
Honestly, I kind of like how they just buy in. Like, and if you're gonna do it, you got to go full in, right?
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Next one. See if we understand this one. /security emerges from stealth to fuse code security with cloud native context, transforming a decades-long AppSec paradigm. This is definitely written by their marketing team.
Yeah.
8 million out of stealth. Shlomo Kramer invested, so that's an endorsement for sure. And the founders, these two dudes, I used to work with him. Shahar Man, he was the, well, it probably says here, he was VP at Aqua. There it is. It says, he says vice president at Aqua. He was, I mean, specifically he was vice president of development. Like he helped make the product. So it's not like he's a complete, like he's technical. Let's say that.
For sure.
I have no idea who this other guy is. But yeah, I would say yet another company trying to go again into the application security market, trying to disrupt with the definition of application security, because there's like Bionics in that space. Apiro, we talked about earlier, that was adjacent to CNAP apparently, are in that space. These guys are in that space. Cider, that acquisition we just had, is in that space, and they're all saying we're doing application security better than it was done before. And it's like, okay, you know, I guess there's 4 coffee shops that are making coffee now.
Yeah.
But it's like, are they? I don't understand what they're like, what AppSec they're doing. Like, is it? It doesn't say. I'll look at the website.
Yeah. Like, would you consider Sneak AppSec? Sneak is DevSec.
Well, DevSec?
Developer security tool. I feel like it's, it's more application. Yeah, AppSec, DevSec. Like it hasn't shifted right. I think that they're trying to move more into cloud configuration and some like basic tools, whereas a lot of Kubernetes or container tools are shifting left, and that's the story. And they're battling basically over the middle. So I'm just kind of curious where these tools fit in to that map.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I get, all right, so I get Bionic's weird, because Bionic is a shift right application security tool. Like they reverse engineer like running containers, and they allow you to say this vulnerability is not exploitable in the context of its deployment, which I immediately think that's cool.
Yeah.
But actually I want that information more left, because I'm going to have to fix it left. Right. So, and I think Apiro uses a SAST. I remember Accurix.
Yep.
They got swallowed up by, was it Tenable? They were trying to use static analysis Serif output, which gives you detailed, like down to the line number of where something is, and it's a generic format. They were trying to integrate that into cloud context, which I think is a cool idea. I don't know if they ever did it. They must have, because they got bought. But I like those ideas, but I've yet to see anybody execute on something that makes me convinced it's working.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I feel like a lot of these smaller platforms just get swallowed up by the bigger ones, bigger security players. And then like if they're in the middle, it's partly like a marketing position to be like, oh, you're to the right of me, you're to the left of me. Either one of you could swallow me up if they want to like make the move into like a different market, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I guess my final probably super cynical hot take on this is that Cider was claiming the same thing and got bought. So like scramble everyone, make another version, because if people are buying these types of companies, well, 3 more,
it's a marketing thing, right? I mean, was it StackRox gets bought, then NuVector gets bought right away. As soon as StackRox got bought by Red Hat, NuVector pivoted their entire marketing scheme to match ours, right? And then they get bought 6 months later. Like
boom. Yeah, it's
pretty smart. All right. I have kind of a spicy CVE that I want to bring up.
Now, what starts with the letter C?
Yes, you have. We're hot taking all over the place. Do this one.
Yeah. This is an interesting one. So Google discloses CentOS Linux kernel vulnerability following a failure to issue timely fixes. So Google uses CentOS. CentOS obviously upstream of a lot of Red Hat products. And they came out with a couple of just medium vulnerabilities, and they're like, hey, this is important, you should fix this. And it's like, okay, like, yeah, there's a vulnerability there. It might not actually be exploitable. Sometimes they're not even useful. But internally at Red Hat, so it remains to be seen if Red Hat will be pressured into fixing them as soon as possible. So what, you just write an article saying, hey, there are these vulnerabilities and we need to fix them and we should just do it. We need to drop all of our engineering resources to go and fix these upstream? Because here's the thing, is it is open source. You can fix them and contribute them upstream, Google. Why does Red Hat have to do this? Okay, that's number one. Two, if you go and fix this and you introduce another vulnerability, is Red Hat also on the hook for this? Because we have to triage accordingly. A medium vulnerability might not have a big impact. And also, just because something has a CVSS score, that's not the only way to rank vulnerabilities. Okay, everybody is bought into CVSS and it's like, oh, that's the standard, and the CVSS score says 10. It's like, no, that's just one security team's way of ranking. Red Hat has their own security team, and we look at vulnerabilities and we say, no, we think that it's lower. Sometimes we think vulnerabilities are higher than the CVSS scores.
Yep.
But it's just this weird thing because Red Hat doesn't really hit people with this stuff because we're so ingrained in upstream community. We're not going to come up with a response to be like, hey, screw off. But at the same time, this article is playing on people's, I don't want to say ignorance, but not knowing how security fixes get done and the trade-offs. And it's basically saying, hey, you're choosing not to fix these in the upstream community. Again, anybody can fix things in the upstream community. Why is it Red Hat? Just because it's upstream of most of our products that we're responsible for it. Yeah, it's always an interesting dilemma, but also why you have paid products. And I think that's another thing that they're trying to slap us for. So that's my defense, and defense of Red Hat and just open source in general is not every security fix needs to be fixed in a timely manner. You have to look at impact and specific to the vulnerability. Just because somebody says it's a high vulnerability doesn't mean it is a high. It could be medium. You have to actually dig into their security responses. And, you know, these have been known. These have been tested. I think internally the engineers basically said, yeah, this isn't exploitable. If they come in and show that it is, then we'd probably fix it, right?
Yeah.
But I just wanted to get into sort of the nitty gritty as to how vulnerabilities are managed. And when you go into a security tool and you see there's all these low and medium vulnerabilities, one of Vincent Dannon, who lives in Toronto, he's head of ProdSec here at Red Hat, did a whole write-up about why you can't triage all vulnerabilities and why not, you know, you need to go after high and important vulnerabilities, critical, important vulnerabilities. And basically listed that in the last year, there had been 1,100 vulnerabilities associated with, I think, CentOS. Only 2 of them had ever been actively exploited and been shown to be exploitable. Only 2. So out of 1,100. So if we drop everything for every single medium to low vulnerability, you get ready for the cost of all of your services to go way up, right? You imagine if every engineering team had to do this around the world, like everything would just be super expensive. Yeah, nothing would get done.
Nothing would ever get done. No.
So
you're paying a lot for very little.
Yeah. So my final hot take is there's always a trade-off between security and actual innovation. And it's things like this where you're pushing security that doesn't need to be pushed or doesn't actively help the users. It's just an internal battle between the two teams to basically say whose responsibility it is. Doesn't help the conversation, in my opinion.
I agree completely. Hey, a question on top of let's see with Red. Are you guys looking into the other scoring system, like the EPSS exploit prediction?
Yeah. I mean, we have our own. We look at other ones, and so there's just this conversation of, you know, when we have a product, do we display all 3? Do we display 2? Or do we have a dashboard that just ingests one and allows you to ingest the other one and showcase it? Those are common conversations that we have. You know, I think there are a lot of people who want like 3 vulnerability scanners, and then they look at all 3 and they say, okay, like this is something that we need to focus on because all 3 of them are flagging it versus one of them has a flag. And it's just another layer that they use. But yeah, again, I think that there's some serious issues with the CVSS score. There was a whole breakdown as to why it wasn't a normal distribution and why like certain things, if you looked at it, there was like a massive amount that were at 7.1, which triggered a lot of policies because policies would be configured around 7.0. And in general, they weren't fixable. Like they were 7.1s, they weren't fixable, they weren't exploitable, but it came up as a high impact and it was causing a lot of flags to be thrown around. People got pissed off. So there's just, a lot of issues with the scoring systems, and finding part of being on a ProdSec team at a company is figuring out what scoring system you want to buy into and adjusting to that, and just saying, yeah, we're using these products. This is the right scoring system. And we're going to go off of, like, if it's CVSS, it's 8 or higher, let's say, and fixable. Then we're going to that's going to be our policy, that we fix those automatically, right? Or immediately.
Totally. Actually, this plays really well off of like the previous claims from Backslash. They're essentially saying when vulnerabilities show up, they don't all matter.
Yeah.
So how can we make that better, right? And that's essentially what it comes down to. And it's still a problem, obviously.
For sure.
So new scoring systems, 5 years from now, who knows what we'll be saying? Hopefully better things.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, we have a great demo. So we're doing KubeArmor. Steve, are you ready?
Oh, good God. Let's go.
Does everybody know what time it is?
I hope so. I have been pretty unlucky with demos in the past few shows. I'm going to do this a console, so I'm going to need to see the bottom. KubeArmor. KubeArmor is an open source project by Akunox. I didn't dive into Akunox, but I'm assuming whatever I show you today, it's just a scalable version of what we'll look at today, because what I'm going to show you is like not scalable, but you can see what it's supposed to be doing. And it's cool. So the idea is runtime protection for Kubernetes. I like and other cloud workloads, whatever. But
yeah.
I think they say other cloud workloads because it's an eBPF centric system. So it's going to be put onto the individual nodes and be running such that, sure, it can monitor Kubernetes, but not only Kubernetes, because it's as part of the Linux kernel monitoring. So all good. Nice little pretty diagram that largely told me nothing other than I could see, I think it's using a bit of, they have their own installation. It's like a daemon set that goes out. And I assume that's what somehow puts it onto the nodes. There's a little how-to there. I watched this. It was good. It's only 2 minutes. I did it. And I, just so you know the subject matter, I've got a Civo cluster that I spun up just to see, what's happening in the background. 3 nodes, reasonably heavy. It's not that expensive. We've done Civo before. They're great for this kind of crap. And it is, my best description is like a combination of like Kyverno style rules.
Okay.
With powered by eBPF.
All right.
Make sense?
Yep.
Yeah, it all looks familiar. And outside of the getting started, it's another one of these, like, for a security tool, dodgy installs where it's like, it's gonna like just curl some random stuff and run it. Oh, just run this script on your computer and allow sudo access to your, okay, fine. Maybe this is how we install weed on our system. Who knows, right? Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, I'm going to trust you, and I did it. And then you run karma install, assuming your kubeconfig is within scope. It'll just go blah and install it. And I did. Let me just find where on earth my console is. Here it is. And you can see there's my karma install.
Okay.
And then switch me back. Put me back in the other side one. I don't like this one because I can't see the bottom of the screen.
Oh, you want me to? There you go.
There we go. Because I want to be able to see the whole thing. So I did like that it took 48 seconds, and I did a check to see what was running afterwards, and everything came up. Like, it wasn't heavy. It just went, and it was on. I was like, oh, is that it? Cool. All right. So then I go back and look at it and go, what on earth do I do next? And the instructions are pretty good. Like, in terms of support, it supports like pretty much everything that you might, including K3s, Graviton. Like, it's pretty comprehensive. I don't know why it wouldn't be, but it's just, I went to go check a bunch of marketing junk. Did inline. So what they're saying is that not only do they monitor, but a little bit like, it reminded me a little bit of Tetragon. When we first saw that policy-driven ability to block, and there's not very many like runtimes that do that. Certainly not open source that go beyond monitoring, and that's kind of that's a summary of the differentiation. They give you a lot of use cases about least permissive access, but I think the best thing for me was just to come here and go, oh, use cases, okay, file integrity monitoring. What does that look like? And here's an example policy. I'll make it bigger so we can break it down. Because now that's installed, it's just a bunch of CRDs. So there's a KubeArmor policy object now in Kubernetes.
Okay.
So you could just do a kubectl apply -f this out of the box, say what namespace it's in, and then specify block anything in the bin, sbin, user bin, read only, and of course recursive everything below.
Interesting.
Give you a message, give it an arbitrary severity between 1 and 10, and tag it with any of the compliance directives that you might be applying this against, because file integrity monitoring is a part of both NIST and PCI DSS. So now you can do queries based on those tags as well with Kubernetes. So I thought that was pretty cool. A lot of this actually reminded me of both like Aqua and Compute in terms of the style of rules, whitelisting certain things. So here, I thought this was really cool. So they instead of saying, okay, you can't run bash, they're saying you can't run ping spawned by, like, you know, like BusyBox. If you do BusyBox, everything looks like BusyBox because it's like one thing that runs other things. So that can hide itself from your rules. So you can actually say, don't run ping if it comes from here. Or so I thought that's good. I bet you the first time they built this, they're like, what? Why is it not working?
Yeah.
I thought this is all generally pretty cool, and you can make a whitelist. This is pretty good. I don't know how like applicable it is, because you have to do a lot of work to figure out what rules you need.
Yeah. Also, because like you would need something like a new vector or a StackRox to tell you what's running on the host first, because if you just go randomly apply this and all of a sudden your developers pods get kicked out because they have no clue. Maybe there's some system call that uses one of the, like bash or something like that, right? Or some process that uses bash.
Right. You don't know what you have to have intimate knowledge to do some of these rules.
Yeah.
That they're suggesting as the out of the box use cases. Armor itself is super simple. Actually, it's very cool in terms of like, you can do, I think it's Karma summary or summary. You get like a bit of, I can't type, darn it. Summary, sock shop, I think is how it works. All right, you get a lot of data, but it's telling me, holy geez, okay. I ran this yesterday, but then I've had sock shop up and running forever. There's like one thing had been done, but it shows you.
It sees all of the, okay.
This is a way of getting command line observability. I know it's just too small, but I'll zoom in so you can see. It shows you so ingress connections, egress connections, bind points, files that have been touched, how many times they've been touched, whether allow is whether they're supposed to have been touched, or whether there's access. So from a command line perspective, like it's pretty cool.
Yep.
And you get all broken down. And I was like, oh, okay. Then this is when I clued in and went, oh, this must be what Aquinox is as a service. Like this observability must be in SaaS somehow, right?
Yeah, they definitely take this eBPF module, and I'm assuming that in the SaaS solution, they'll display it to show baselines, what's running, what isn't, right? The network graph, etc. And then this is their open source.
This is it. So module. this is where we were like, how do I create the rules? How do I even know what's happening? Then I saw the summary and I did this, and I was like, okay, here's my observability that I can then feed back into these kind of rules. Nice. They have a few examples that they provide out of the box. Like they have this multi-Ubuntu thing going on, and they do have some rules out of the box for sock shop. You can see what I've got in the thing at the moment. I've got both sock shop and here, and I got this thing called multi-Ubuntu. And I think the reason they've done that is just so you can differentiate based on nodes, or spread them out across different, and then manipulate based on different rules and things. So they've got examples for that. You can see the Aquinox agent for Discovery Engine is there. I had to install that separately just so you know, it doesn't come by default. And it is a daemon set because you can see the KubeArmor, these little guys, there's one on every node. And I kind of wanted to jump into this because in order to get an eBPF module installed on the node and actually work, you need a lot of power because that's an attack vector.
Yeah,
So
I was wondering how the enforcement
work?
comes into play, right?
Yeah, that was where I was like, okay, I haven't got under the covers to find out how that works and whether I agree with the method of installation. But that may be maybe a hot take for next week, given the time I had. But in terms of monitoring, it reminded me a little bit of Sysdig, sort of, right? You can take KubeArmor logs, and I'll pop it up so you can see. So so instead of just like printing out the log, it actually is a live, I'm doing logs now. So I did that, and I didn't have any rules, so I came over here and I made a few rules in advance, like a little bit like I went in here and said, all right, for this KubeArmor, and I'll blow it up a little bit. Oh, that was weird. In the sock shop, block anything from source busy box that is touch, and then also touch if it happened outright. Match labels, do it in the shipping module, only the shipping module.
Yeah.
And I thought, all right, to me, that looks exactly like one of their block processes. I need to actually get the pod. So I'm going to jump into the pod. The pod name for shipping. And there it is. Exact. T. Bomb. Is that going to work? What did I get wrong? Edit me on the fly. Oh, anyway, namespace.
Exact. Yeah.
Okay. Now, touch. Yeah, okay, so it's a read-only file system. I can't do it there. But I did just try and run touch, and it didn't block me. It just said I couldn't run. I know /temp is available, so if I do a touch blah here, it should work. So that didn't block me.
Interesting.
I was like, what the? And I came over here, and this doesn't update immediately because I did a few of these things yesterday where I came in here. I was like, okay, and I don't have any alerts. What the? And then I came back and started trying, going, did it work? Like, and then eventually, and maybe hope it'll happen, a bunch of alerts showed up. But it was a little on the slow side. It was very delayed. And plus I got alerts from a bunch of other stuff. Now, while I'm waiting and hoping the alerts show up, because it did work. I don't want to say that didn't work. The alerts messages did appear.
Okay.
Oh, actually, maybe I didn't even put the, maybe it's my fault. Maybe I didn't do this, did I? See if it tells me it's already there. Okay, well.
Created. All right.
User error. Let's put the FIM one in there while we're at it. That's just monitoring. There's nothing blocking on file integrity, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I put it on audit. And I'm watching the temp directory.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right, so we've got both going on now. All right, so let's jump back in. It was delayed, but not the in terms of it's never going to do anything if you don't touch Steve. There you go. Boom.
It's not letting you touch Steve?
It's not. It did, though.
Oh,
see, this is where I got confused.
Having fun with it.
Everyone's allowed to touch Steve. So it worked. So alert, default, sock shop, shipping, matched policy, busy box was the source, touch Steve was the operation, and fantastic. Except, what is going on there? Why is the action audit blocked?
Yeah,
I just said block. So this is where this is the point I got to in prep for this demo, thinking this is super cool, except it didn't actually block me. It came up with an action that is what it did. It audited and it showed it to me that I did it, but it didn't actually block me, and it changed my status, which is explicitly blocked to audit block, and I don't. So I might ping him and ask a question about how I did that, because it's just I bet you there's something I'm doing wrong. But I like that it worked, like the audits work.
Is it because 2 got triggered? Because the audit, like attempt to write in the directory needed to be audited, and then it also got blocked. So is that what audit blocked means? Like maybe
All
you
right.
have the block rule, right? And you have the audit rule, so it triggered both.
All right, I'm going to do this then. Could be. Change the rule.
So now it should just be block, right?
I agree. Maybe I was confusing the system. It's one of those like user experience things where it's like, something good.
Nice. And so is there any file?
Touch mic is there. Resources /tim/mic, and there you are down there.
Yeah. Okay. So you created the file. It didn't block it then, right?
Didn't block it. So I don't quite get it, and it still says auto block.
Yeah.
So this is kind of where I ended it, and I'm giving the benefit of the doubt that I've done something wrong, and it should block, right? But the thing I did do, which thoroughly confused me again, because I was doing things on my own, right? I was creating my own rules. Sorry, let me zoom in here. And I went to the quick start guide, and there is some examples where it says, just do our thing, okay?
Okay.
And that's probably too small. Let me boom this in again. It said, in order to test that it works, deploy the sample app multi-Ubuntu, which I did. Deploy the sample policies, which I didn't even read what they were. I just copied them and applied them. And then simulate a policy violation. So I did. I copied that out, which was that line, which I could probably do now. If I wanted to, why are you not moving? Is this where I was doing stuff? Let's fire that up again. Go. Exit. No, I got too much information there. Pod name equals, that's just going to confuse the hell out of it. And I did the sleep one. Slept for one. So it's like, well, hold on.
Yeah, and it worked.
I did exactly what you told me to do. And before the show started, I did these two things, because you see multi-Ubuntu is running, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I applied the rules. And I did it. And I now I saw, oh, that's what I should have got, was a permission denied. So I followed their exact deployment directions, and they say they support K3s, but it didn't work. So I didn't know if it was a CVO security setting, maybe.
Yeah, I'm wondering if CVO just says, hey, you only have certain access to the nodes if they have their own thing.
Yeah, but I got no installation errors. Everything came thumbs up. But so that's where I got stuck. But again, benefit of the doubt. I'm probably going to write to them afterwards and say, hey, this is what I did. You go watch the demo on C9K.
Yeah.
You'll see what I'm doing. But I love the idea of it. It seemed very cool and a great way if you want to spend the time, like as a small business, to create a set, use the use cases that they've got, because they've got a lot of very simple ones out there for you, and create some, pretty basic but very easy runtime observability and prevention as open source.
Yeah,
so
I love the Falco project, but this seemed a lot easier to actually implement, like rules right out the bat. Like right off the bat. Like you don't have to go into a Falco config file. It's just, here's your YAML file that you're used to using. Pretty straightforward in terms of how to apply it and get feedback very quickly. So I mean, in terms of that, big thumbs up.
Yeah, it's super easy. And I think, obviously, I'm guessing Equinox is this at scale with maybe visualizations rather than command line observability. And I go, cool.
Yeah, I mean, they had all that information that came out when you did the logs, right? That has to be fed into a dashboard somewhere. It's properly formatted. It's got the looks and the colors. Like they're definitely working on this. So I think that makes sense.
Yeah, it was cool. Shame I couldn't get to block, but I mean,
yeah,
I don't know.
We need to get this one in the CKS now. Speaking of certifications, because it's just Falco. It's like, why not have the option to have both?
Yeah. Exactly. It seems similar and it seems easier. And they love Kyverno. And people who love Kyverno are going to like this.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah. Well, thanks. Not sure what demo we're going to use in 2 weeks. If you have any ideas, leave it in the chat or message us on Twitter or the LinkedIn's. If you want us to demo something, I know there's a couple open source tools, but we'll see. I will be back in 2 weeks on Friday, right?
Yep. Yep.
Again, anything, if you want any links to the show, they should be in the chat underneath on YouTube. Other than that, have a great rest of your weekend. I'm Michael Foster. He's Steve Giguere, and this is C9K.